I'm going to tell you my story, because my story is the story of many, many women. For most of my adult life, sex was painful. And what I mean is intercourse really hurt. Now, I liked all that other stuff that I was taught was called foreplay. All that stuff like making out and, oral and all that good stuff. I love that. I can open up to that. But when that penis came out and it started to get erect, it's like my vagina just went, no way. So I spent the first 15 years of my sexual life faking it. Again, how many clients do you know who've done this? I faked my pleasure. I faked my orgasm. And unfortunately, or sadly, a lot of the lovers I was with totally believed me, except for one. And he called me frigid. Now, the good news is I went into therapy. And in therapy, I discovered that I had been molested when I was really, really young by my dad. I mean, it was good to know. And then I had been continuously shamed by my mom around my sexual expression. So now I had a context for why I had so much ambivalence around my sexuality. But it didn't change what was going on inside of me. When I was 31, I met a woman. And I started to have sex with women. Whoa, now that was really fun. It's like my sex came out, the juices flowed. I realized that I wasn't frigid at all. There was plenty of arousal. So that was fantastic for me. And yet, there was this thing that was still going on. When I was with women, I was still in control. I maintained control because I wasn't going to trust anyone else, i.e. myself, to completely surrender into the experience in the moment and really let this orgasmic energy flow out of me. So in my late 40s, when I entered menopause, and things do change, I decided to just take a hiatus from relationships, just take them off the plate. And I decided I was going to really explore the terrain of my sexuality. So I went on this amazing journey. I enrolled in a program called Diamond Logos, which integrates spirituality with sexuality and psychology, and it was all about embodiment. I found this amazing body worker who helped me open up streams of energy that started to flow through my body. I learned tantric practices. I went and did ecstatic dance. I had a lot of fun, and I was celibate, but I was really exploring this terrain. And towards the end of that time, I went to a talk on mindfulness and sexuality. Well, that was right up my alley. And I met a woman who introduced me to this practice called orgasmic meditation. It was called female stroking, or stroking the clitoris, and was like, whoa. I was intrigued, and I was also horrified. And I was single, so what was I supposed to do? Well, you know me, I was curious. So I took the class, I learned the practice, and I had my first experience of female stroking, and it was amazing. It was amazing. It's like something opened up and my mind got completely quiet. Whoa. So I stayed with that and all these other great things I was doing, and 6 months later, I entered into a relationship with a man, and I had intercourse, and it was pleasurable. It was like my whole physiology had changed. My vagina just like pulled him in. It was so revelatory. So I decided I was going to take this last piece, this whole sexuality piece, and weave it into my body of work, which is called Ignite Your Joy. Because I'm all about getting your mojo going, getting the ignition going, having vitality, no matter how old you are, because we're all here to have aliveness until the day that we die. So this was the last piece, the Wellness Sexuality Practice, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. The Wellness Sexuality Practice. So this is a 5-step practice that's designed to open up sensation in the body. And we're talking about all kinds of sensation. Touch, sense, smell, not necessarily sexual, just wake you up. And then when your awareness of sensation starts to wake up, you start to feel more pleasure. right? Like you start to feel the air on your skin or the wind blowing through your hair, and it starts to feel really good. This practice brings you into the present moment because you can't feel in your body if you're in the future or the past. It helps you deeply relax, and the more you relax, the more receptive you become to the stimulation you're getting from your environment. What else did I say? Oh, and as you start to relax into sensation, your erotic sensation starts to emerge, even before you have any genital contact. So it increases your aliveness, your vitality, and it promotes longevity. Now, the Taoists have known about this for years. They do this work called cultivating microcosmic orbit, like chi energy. They know that the secret to long life is cultivating this energy and moving it also through the sexual channels. And when you do this practice, you deepen your connection with your partner and you can have more intimacy. All right, let's see. Next slide. Level 1. Level 1 is sensing. I learned from a woman named Charlotte Selver back in the 80s. Anyone ever heard of her? She was like this amazing trendsetter. She was teaching somatic practices before we'd even heard of them. So back in the 80s, I learned this practice called sensory awareness. And it was all about this like waking up in the body. So this practice, which I now weave into level 1 of my practice, is a sensual practice, but it's not sexual. And it's designed to bring you into your body. And what we do in sensing is we use very light, focused touch, and also very subtle movement, like as subtle as just shifting from one hip back to center to the other side, like really subtle movement. And what this does is it starts to open up the physiology, and you start to feel sensation open up in other parts of your body. So it cultivates this genuine aliveness. I mean, we're here to be in our bodies, and our bodies have this capacity to be incredibly alive and receptive, like sea anemones, just that kind of. So that's what this cultivates. And you can do this practice alone. I'll guide you through it, or you can do it with a partner. Level 2, sense communication. So this is when you start to bring language into the practice. You start to speak from direct experience. Right now, I'm feeling some warmth in my hip, a little tightness there, and as I shift to the other side, I can feel the tightness let go and a little bit of warmth circling around my hip to my back. Like really subtle, sense-guided language. And what happens is that when you speak in this way, the person you're speaking to actually can get it and they can feel it in their own body. So it's a really great way to communicate. I also bring in another piece, which is human design. And I'm not going to talk about that much today, but one of the things we do in human design is discover our energetic blueprint and how we best need to communicate and receive communication. So I teach you ways to communicate to your partner, not just the sense, like the body base, but other ways to communicate so they can really hear you. So this sense communication gives you a language, a communication tool that you can use in any aspect of your life and bring into your sex. And this part, again, you can just learn it with me or you can learn it with your partner. Okay. And clearly, this piece, when you learn how to communicate in this way, your reactivity drops away, and then you can really respond in a loving manner, which is way more helpful in a relationship. Okay, now this is probably what you all came here to hear about. Level 3, now we're entering into the sexual domain. This is called female stroking. And this female stroking is a blend of the first 2 levels, tantric practices, and orgasmic meditation. So I've taken it and I've kind of changed it up a little bit. This is a partnered practice, and one of the partners is a woman. And essentially what happens is the woman removes her pants, lies down in a space called a nest. Her partner, who's going to stroke her, can be a man or a woman, remains fully clothed. and he sits next to her on her right side and strokes her clitoris for 20 minutes. And there's all these other pieces that come in, but essentially it's a stroking practice. Both people need to be trained on how to do this because you want to do it well and you want to do it right. So it's a practice that lasts 20 minutes. When it's over, she puts her pants on, they do practice some sense communication, and they're done. So just take that in for a moment. Because the first time I heard about it, I was like, what? All right. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about it. What makes this work really well? The container. It's a very structured practice with a very tight container. And this is really important for both who practice, especially the woman. Because women, as you know, have a highly developed vigilance center, which means we're constantly scanning the environment to make sure it's safe. The doors are locked, the kids are in bed. You know that? It's like we're really good at that. And when our vigilance center is activated, it's really hard for us to just let go and relax. So this practice is designed to help the woman relax her vigilance center. It also really relaxes the person who's stroking her. Now, this is where I get my cheat sheet out because I get so excited I forget what I want to say. Okay, so other ways that we create a tight container. You create this nest, this sacred place that you do this practice in. It's not on the bed, preferably not in the bedroom, on the floor somewhere else. And the idea is you are creating a space that's not associated with sex because this is a sexual practice, but it is not sex. It's not foreplay. It's not I'll do you if you do me. It's simply a practice in a contained amount of time that cultivates sexual energy. So in other ways we create containment is that it's timed. You bring to the nest all the accoutrements, lots of blankets, pillows, a good pillow for the stroking person to sit on, a timer, really great lube, and the timer is really important. You start the timer when you start the stroking, and when the timer goes off, it's done. You don't go over the time. Again, that really relaxes the woman who's being stroked because she knows. It's like you know where the doors are and you know when it's going to end. So that helps you relax. It's very important to know that this is not for pleasing either partner. So in other words, this is another way that it's safe. It's not a practice about bringing your partner to climax. It's not a practice about pleasing your partner. So the person who's stroking is literally stroking for their own pleasure. So when the stroking practice begins, the stroking partner puts his finger or her finger on the clitoris and starts. And all that's required is that the person who's lying down, the woman, feel the sensation at the point of contact and as it travels through her body. That's it. And all he is, or she, it needs to do is feel the sensation at the tip of the finger and notice what travels through his or her body. Whoa. Just think about that. You're not there to make them feel better. And the woman who's receiving is not there to make you feel like you're doing it right. It's like all these trappings just get dropped and peeled away. What else did I not say? All right, let me talk about the communication piece, because this is another way that keeps the container really tight and safe for both parties. There's a practice called safe porting. So before the stroker starts to stroke, he will say to his partner, I'm going to step over you, I'm going to stroke your pussy, or whatever language you like to use, and so on. So each step of the way, she knows what's coming, so she can relax. During the practice, there's this communication that occurs. Again, we're practicing the sense communication that they've already learned. So she can say something like, could you give me a little more pressure? And so she can simply direct her stroker to the place of highest sensation by making very simple requests. It's mind-blowing when women learn how to make these kinds of requests. when they're not in sex, and then imagine what happens when you go back to sex or any other part of your life. On the same hand, the person who's stroking can make offers. Would you like a little faster stroke? And so on. So there's this communication that's going on throughout the yom. In the beginning, right before they start, they actually sit opposite each other and practice sense communication and describe how they're feeling before they even begin as a way to connect. And at the end, there's another opportunity for the communication where they share what they felt in a particular moment. So you've got communication happening in a way that's really simple, so it doesn't bring you up into your head. It's timed, it's contained, it's totally goalless. Here's another important piece. In our culture, we talk about orgasm, having lots of orgasms. In this practice, I make a distinction between orgasm or orgasmic energy and climax. So climax is when a guy ejaculates and goes over, and for a woman when there's contractions and she goes over. You know what that's like. It's a climax. It's like boom. It's like a point of completion. And in our culture, in most sex, traditionally the way we've been taught or conditioned, everything is geared towards that moment of and then you go to sleep. This practice is about orgasmic energy. Now, the Taoists have known about this for centuries. It's that flow that runs from head to toe. It can get started in the genitals, but it travels throughout your body. Women know this energy really well. Men have it too. So when a person is stroking a woman, he can start to tap into that orgasmic energy that flows through his system. So it has ups and downs and valleys, and it can go for hours. Now, in the practice, you're doing it for 20 minutes, but when you're done and you move into your day, you've got this access to this energy that just infuses your life. I mean, it totally changed me. I didn't say this in my story, but I'll mention it now. I went to see my gynecologist after I'd been doing this practice for 6 months, and she said, "Oh my God," she said, "you have the genitals of like a 30-year-old. What have you been doing?" So, I mean, it brings blood and circulation to the area. So imagine what kind of healing can happen here. So we're talking about healing from trauma, healing from any kind of scar tissue, like emotional healing. The possibilities are amazing. So, did I leave anything out? Oh, yeah, this is important. So you've got a couple who are starting to do this practice. When they're done, they put the nest away and they go about their day. It's really, really important that they don't, they're kind of turned on, right? It's really important that they don't go into the bedroom and start having sex. You know why? Because if you have sex after this practice, you're going to start associating sex with this, and then you're going to start getting into the nest going, ooh, I wonder if he's going to ask, or I wonder if she's going to want to, and then you see what happens? So what we're doing is we're stripping away all kinds of commerce. So you get in, you get out, and it's over. But boy, it's really great. Okay, so that's really, really important. Okay. And I do training in this. Couples will come to me and I will teach them all the exquisite steps. I haven't taken you through the steps, but I wanted to give you the flavor of what's possible here. Male stroking. Okay. This is very similar to female stroking, except now we have the man lying down, pants off, the woman fully clothed, or the man fully clothed. And all the parameters apply to this that apply to the female stroking practice. It's timed, you do sense communication in the beginning. The person who's stroking lets the person who's receiving what's happening from moment to, well, not moment to moment, but you basically let them know when you're going to do major shifts or adjustments so they can relax, okay? Now, this is phenomenal. This practice is absolutely phenomenal because guys, honestly, how many of you have just laid down and allowed someone to just stroke your genitals for their own pleasure for 20 minutes without wanting anything of you? Without you needing to get hard or sexy or, without you evaluating how your penis is doing, right? This is really revelatory for the men. It's the practice looks a little different because the genitalia is different, but essentially the person stroking just touches and plays with the men's genitalia for their own pleasure. Now that's pretty radical too. You're not doing this to get him off, to give him a good hand job, to like pay back some OZ from earlier in the day. You're just dropping into the pleasure of, whoa, what's here? And then for the man who's the strokee or the receiver, it's just so phenomenal. Like, he doesn't have to worry about if he's doing it right, or it's like he can drop into this place of just letting go and surrendering and seeing what will happen. And it's like time stands still. So that's the male stroking practice. Obviously, for all of them, what's happening here is connection. And I know you know this from in other ways, but I just want to say it because it's always important to say. The best way to connect with your partner is to be really grounded and present in your own self. So in these practices, your only job is to go into your own experience, your own sensation. What are you sensing in your genitals, your finger, your toes, the back of your neck? And as you really drop into what you're sensing in yourself, you are more available and present to experience your partner. It's amazing. It's like you let go of trying to get it right or do it right or questioning yourself, and you just drop into this world of sensation. And I have to tell you, it's like we have no idea as women, well, I had no idea what was available to me. I mean, I was having fun, but when I dropped into this practice, it was like, whoa, there was like a whole new world that opened up and just kept opening up for me. So this is possible for, the women in female stroking, the men in male stroking, and for both partners in both practices. It's just like exponential, it just keeps growing. Now, when I work with couples, we usually start with level 1 regardless. When we get to level 3, female stroking, we stay with that for a long time. I mean, if they're into it, I invite them to do that practice for 3 to 6 months before we even consider male stroking. And this is why. This is just my belief and the belief of many others. But in our culture and our conditioning, women are sort of conditioned to follow the male, what's that word? The male trajectory around sex. So we like please men, and some of us fake orgasm for men, and it's all about getting everything ready so you can put the penis in the vagina and have sex, right? So women get hijacked in their sex in this culture. I encourage couples to stay with female stroking for a really long time, so the woman starts to fill up and fill up and fill up and fill up until she gets so full that she's like, oh. And then we add male stroking. Does that make sense? And in the meantime, because guys will go, well, what's in it for me if I'm the stroker? You have to try it. I mean, I'll tell you some things that happen for the men. When they're stroking, they, for the first time in their lives, maybe, I can be a little extreme sometimes, but they start to really look at women's genitals, their partner's genitals. It's like, whoa, and they get to see it grow and change and like, whoa, what happens? They get to pay exquisite attention to this part of their partner's body that they may not have been paying as much attention to. That is mind-blowing. What else happens for the men is that they become really confident. Like they really become familiar with how this works and what it feels like and what it feels like to them. So they become so much more relaxed in their ability to be with their partner, and then that carries over into their sex life. So that's two of the reasons or two ways that men can really benefit from being the strokers. Okay, level 5, surprise, surprise. Take it to the bedroom. So you've been practicing level 1, level 2, you've been doing some genital stroking, and sometimes with couples, that's all we'll do for a while. Like, sex intercourse is off the table because we're reconnecting them, teaching them how to really feel into themselves, communicate better, and when they're ready, let's start to play in the bedroom. So sexual high play, we're weaving it all together and let's see what happens. Sex completely changes. Again, can completely change. Just saying, instead of looking at sex as all those things that you do to lead to intercourse, you have this like huge menu of sexual options. Maybe we'll just make out for an hour or two. Maybe we'll just do some breast play. It's like the whole body is awake now, and there's so much potentiality and sensation. There's all these different ways you can have erotic connection. And then you can choose intercourse, but it's like it can be slow or fast or hard. It can be what you want because you're guiding each other through clear communication. So this can be a really fun time. And I think the thing that's so cool about this is all of a sudden you've got this wide variety of options for sex. It's just not as limited as it might have been before. You just let your imagination take you wherever you want to go with that. I also will refer people to communities where they can get more experience in certain kinds of things that maybe I'm not specialized in, but there's infinite possibilities available here. Actually, since we're doing so great for time, I'm just going to pause right there and see if you have some questions, because we've definitely got lots of time. Yes, please.
I actually have a couple questions. I think you're suggesting that there's, during the stroking, that there's no orgasm. What if you can't help it?
Thank you. Orgasm happens, right, first differentiating. So orgasm, in my vocabulary, yeah, but we're going there. So orgasmic energy happens, always happens, even if it's just a little twitch in your labia. Climax can happen. It can totally happen, but you're not going for climax. A lot of women's experience is when they start to get really aroused, they actually start to contract the muscles and they kind of push through to climax. Anybody familiar with that? So in this practice, you take the pushing off. There's no pushing, no trying, no doing whatsoever. It's just sensing what you're feeling moment to moment to moment. And then if a climax just comes through, whoa, that's great. And it's come from that deep orgasmic place. It's a different experience. And then if it does happen, what often can occur is that the tissue gets super, super, super sensitive. So you don't stop. You just ask your partner to stroke really super lightly, or maybe stop, or add more lube. So you stay with it, but you go really, 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 really light and then see what happens.
So you don't try to foster anything. In fact, it sounds like you actually try to just not. You just try to stay just in a feeling of pleasure without trying to go anywhere.
And it's not always pleasurable. Like when this tissue starts to wake up, especially because we're primarily stroking the clitoris, sometimes there can be different levels of sensation. Like if there's some numbness there, which there is for a lot of women, when that numbness, think about it, when your arm falls asleep and it gets numb, when it starts to wake up, there's so there can be pain. There can be what we call shards of glass. There can be different sensations that occur as the genitals start to open up and melt and wake up. So different kinds of sensation can occur. It's not always necessarily pleasurable, but what I work with, when I'm working with people, I coach them to stay with whatever that sensation is, because if you really stay in it and go into the center of it, it opens up to something else. I mean, that's like every aspect of life. Like when you're, working with a client in therapy and they're right at that and they don't want to go to that emotion and you invite them to stay there and just rest there, So, yeah. So no trying. You learn to feel the trying because we're all conditioned to do that, and then you start to let go of trying. I mean, you have to learn how to let go because we've been so heavily conditioned to do things.
If you're coaching them through these steps, do you recommend that they not do intercourse, or is it kind of like a separate thing?
It's a separate thing, and it totally depends on the couple. Like when I get to my composite case study, I'll talk about that. It totally depends. Everybody's different. Yeah. Just don't do it in the nest. Do it separate time. Yeah.
With the 20 minutes, so are you saying this is 20 minutes daily, or are you starting like weekly, going to daily? Are you starting at 2 minutes and going 20 minutes?
It's always 20 minutes. Always 20 minutes, and as often as you want.
Okay.
Once a week, once a day, twice a day, once a month.
So it's like structured, but also flexible to their, however.
Their schedule.
Their schedule. Okay.
So here's the thing, you know, how many times have you hear your partner say, "Oh, honey, I don't have time to have sex." Well, do you have 20 minutes? Another part of the communication is you invite your partner, "Do you want to do this practice?" They say yes. You set up a time and you do it. If they say no, you let go and you ask another time. Yeah, but some people do it, you know, everybody's different, and they set up, if they find some value, I recommend that you do it regularly, whatever regularly looks like to you. Like if you meditate, what's regularly look like, or if you do yoga. It's a practice. Okay, did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, let's take 2 more and then I'll keep going, and then we'll do more questions at the end. 1 more and then we'll go.
This is very eye-opening. I work with patients who've had prostate cancer treatment and women who've had chemotherapy, radiation.
Right.
And I was just wondering whether there's another specific or 2 of how you work with that patient population. That's a tidbit for me to keep in mind as I'm working with the couples and so forth.
Well, I'm just going to answer this with a broad brushstroke. Anybody who's received chemotherapy, any kind of treatment like that, probably has had some physiological response, like less energy, tiredness, exhaustion, right? So you start a practice like this where they're at. It might be, you know, just very gentle stroking. And you start to build up their vitality. Because this energy, this is probably one of the most potent sources for renewal and vitality in our bodies. And we squash it down in Western culture. So we would start really gently, and just to cultivate more vitality in their system. Maybe we wouldn't even start with the stroking, we'd start with level 1 and just start opening up sensation, especially if you've got stuff with the body, and probably there's some shutdown going on and some shame, and so that can all be worked with really gently and very slowly.
And with erectile dysfunction, I have a large group of people that are coming in.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, all right. I'm only going to say one thing about that, but
I don't want to take your time.
no, it's such a great question, but
Yeah.
I'm going to stay with the time. Erectile dysfunction, okay? Erectile dysfunction is so overblown. A lot of guys don't get erect because their body, their being, doesn't want to be erect right then and there. Like sometimes it's just the body talking to them. Sometimes it's getting older. Sometimes, I mean, what this does is it takes whether your penis is hard or flaccid or somewhere in between, it like makes it not that important. Like you learn to have sensual pleasure in your genitals regardless of whether you're hard or whether you can penetrate or not. I mean, there's a book I recommend at the end that talks about penetration sex with a soft penis.
That's what I'm,
Yeah. So, boy, I mean, so much of it is just the conditioning and the mindset in our culture. It puts tremendous pressure on men. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's all I want to say about that right now. But this is so good because it's much more fun when I'm with. So I'm going to give you a really quick kind of case study, and then I want you to do an experience. I'm going to invite you to try an experience here. Okay, so an example. I had a couple come and see me. They were in their early 40s. They had they were now a year old. They had twins. 40, 41 twins, okay? Up to, through pregnancy, they had both been working, but when they had the children, the babies, he stayed working and she became a full-time mom. So he's working like super hard overtime. She's like not only taking care of one child, she's taking care of Nick too. All right. So he comes home at the end of the day. He is like wiped out. She's totally exhausted, you know, like and overwhelmed. And all she wants to do is put her feet up and have her help with the kids. How much time do they have together? Intimate time together? How many of you are parents? You know what we're talking about. And this is like twins. So their marriage was kind of unraveling. The first thing we did was we ran their human design charts. I can talk to you later more about what that is. But we looked at their energetic configuration. He had the energy to really work hard for long periods of time, so he was fine. But she was something called a projector. And in human design world, this is really amazing information, but just to say, projectors have, they don't have sustainable energy. They can do something in a spurt and then they need to rest. So this woman who was a projector was trying to be, you know, a super mom, and it was burning her out. So when they found out that her energetic style was this and she needed some support, they hired a nanny. I mean, it made all the difference. She was not designed to just be running around playing with the kids all day long. Part of the time, she got to put her feet up on the couch and let the nanny do it. So we started to change how she could take care of the children in a way that would support her. Then we started to address their sex. So she'd had some tearing during childbirth, and so she didn't want intercourse. It was super, super painful. So they basically hadn't had sex for a year, or not sex in their book, right? So that kind of sex. Well, it also turned out that before she got pregnant, she didn't really like intercourse either. But she loved her husband dearly, and so she would have sex with him, intercourse, to please him because she loved him. So that came out in our coaching, and that was like, that was pretty shocking for him. So we went back to basics. We went to level 1. And in this case, sex was off the table. Intercourse was off the table. Any other sex play for now was just off the table because she had been faking it. And we wanted to bring her back into a place of authentic communicating and authentic feeling, like really knowing, learning about her body and finding out what she needed, as well as him. I mean, they were both physically, in terms of sensation, not that awake. It's nobody's fault. It's just what happens. And then, anyway. So we started with level 1, level 2, and then we introduced the stroking practice. And that was revelatory for both of them. For her, she got to lie down, relax, get recharged, and know that when it was over, she didn't have to go please her husband. She didn't have to fake sex. She could just feel the nourishment and the attention and the connection. It was amazing. And for him, after some initial deep frustration, right? Because we had a private session where it was like, I just want to fuck my wife already, let's just get there. We did some work around that. But he dropped into this place of like humility and reverence and vulnerability that was just, it was beautiful. So they stayed with the practice, and then they started to add in new things like oral sex, but oral sex done in this particular way where one would ask the other. It would be oral for your pleasure, like you're going down on your partner, not to get them off, but to explore and see what you feel and taste and like enjoy yourself. So she started to initiate sexual play with him. And she now knew how to guide him and communicate with him and ask for what she wanted and say no to what she didn't want. And then eventually she invited him to penetrate her. And for the first time, she asked, she guided him, and it was slow enough and easy enough that she was able to enjoy it. And It was just amazing to watch this unfold. It was like about a year process. It was just really moving to me. So that's kind of an example. And the implication here is that the scar tissue was healing from the oming. Things were healing in the practice of doing the stroking practice. So there's a lot of, our trauma people know, and we've got SE people here. So much healing can come through the body. So, all right, here's my invitation to you. I would like to guide you through a level 1, very simple practice, so you get an experience of what the sensing piece is. So in order to do it, you just turn to the person next to you. So just settle in and start to sense the support of the chair underneath you. Can you feel the fabric of the chair? Can you feel, or not, or the hardness of the chair underneath you? Just feel the surface beneath your buttocks, your thighs, and also the surface behind your back. And without judging it, because I know those chairs are really hard, just allow yourself to settle a little more fully into your buttocks, your pelvis, your pelvic floor. Just let it drop down into the chair. And feel your breathing. Just notice your breath as it moves in and out. So there's now awareness of breath and settling down into the support of the chair. Nothing to do, nowhere to go, just breath and settling. And now partner A, you'll probably need to open your eyes. Partner B can keep your eyes closed. Partner A, sense your left hand. Yeah. And very gradually just lift it up off your lap or whatever surface it's resting on. And then you're going to take your hand and hover over your partner's thigh or shoulder, whichever is easier for you to reach. You're just going to hover over it. Yeah, just close but not touching. But not touching. And partner B, see if you can sense the presence of the hand. You might not. Doesn't matter. But also sense inside of you, partner B, a sense of expectation. Like the body's already starting to change, knowing that you're about to be touched. Notice how that affects your breathing, your sense of sitting on the chair. And now partner A, just allow your hand to very gently touch one spot. Just rest on one spot. The knee, the shoulder, the forearm. Partner A, sense what you feel under your hand. Do you feel warmth, softness, texture? What happens to your breathing? Can you still feel the support of the chair under your buttocks? And partner B, just notice what you're sensing at the point of contact and throughout your body. And also notice if any thoughts arise. That will happen. Try not to take them too seriously and come back to sensation and breath and the feeling of the chair underneath you. And now partner A, add just a tiny bit more weight or pressure. Just a little tiny, tiny, tiny bit. Yeah. And then relax your hand even more. So if that means less pressure, that's okay. Let your hand, partner A, become as relaxed as possible. You're just hanging out. You're not doing anything. You're not fixing anything. You're not having to do it right. You're just hanging out, connecting. And now with mindfulness, just allow the hand to come away. Very slowly, bring it back to your own lap. And then all of you, just notice what you're sensing right now. Notice if you can still feel anything where there was connection in your hand, in your arm, on your shoulder. And then very slowly, without talking, open your eyes. And this is the next piece, very simple. Partner A will say to partner B, and I'll give you the prompt. There was a moment when I felt, and you're going to fill in the blank with like 1 or 2 words. It could be heat, it could be tightness, it could be nothing. Just 1 or 2 words, that's it. So short and simple. And then partner B, after they say it, you say thank you. So partner A, go ahead. There was a moment when I... And then B, just say thank you. Okay. And then pause right there. It's hard to be simple, isn't it? So hard. And now the same thing, partner B to partner A. There was a moment when I felt, and literally, no more than 1 sentence. Whoa. It could be a sensation, it could be an emotion. There was a moment when I felt, and then partner A will just say thank you. Okay. So come on back to wherever you would like to be. And please see. This is what I'm going to do. All right. So as you're ready, up to here. Woohoo! We're going to thank you. So I want to hear from you, and I also want to just, this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to show you what's next in the slides, but we're not going to talk about them. And then I want to hear how that was for you and answer any more questions you might have before we close. So just FYI, we've kind of covered this, who can benefit from the Wellness Sexuality Practice. I think we've covered that, but I put it on the slides. It's in your handout. Especially that. Mm-hmm. Here's some recommended reading. Mantak Chia works with the flow of chi or energy through the body, and he's written some brilliant books. Slow Sex, The Art and Craft of Female Orgasm by Nicole Daedone, who was the founder of the Om practice. I love this book, Tantric Orgasm for Women. It brings in all these new elements to sex play. It just really expands the horizons and the options. And then Christiane Northrup, Wisdom of Menopause. Yes! So I want to hear how that was for you and answer your questions until they kick us out. And I have one last thing I want to read. Shall I do it now? Okay, this is like a quote that I wrote. I believe that we are here to know ourselves through this amazing vehicle called the body. Yes. This wellness sexuality practice cultivates our ability to experience the pleasure available to us through our senses. I believe that the more we can access and feel pleasure throughout the body, the more we can experience the full range of our erotic potential. Whew. That's what I stand for.